Colin,
yeah, that's when I thought about it.
and Elise, you're here in this movie, The RITE, because it's set in Rome, but you also filmed in Budapest, and it's based on real incidents in a book. How did the two of you start off with, did you read the screenplay and then go to the book? Did you ignore the book? You know, for your characters.
Got the screenplay first, and read that and loved it. It would have been, I think I got it in November a year ago, and then did a self-taping back home in Ireland, which I sent over, and you know, had some meetings since. But after I'd done the original self-taping, I kept reading the script. Then I got the book and read the book as well before the next set of meetings, because I think it's important to know what it is you're going to talk about, you know, and what it is that you're doing. So yeah, that's sort of how it worked out for me. I don't know if you'd read the...
I read same time. I got the script around November last year, and I loved it. I was very scared by it when I read, and then I did the same thing. But I did the audition first, and then I got the book, and I loved it. I never played a journalist before, and I loved the character's journey. I think it was very interesting subject to talk about it, because it feels that it's not real, but as soon as you start reading the script and you start researching, there's a lot of discussion in it. So I really loved the script and the story.
And can I ask, were you both like your characters in the sense that you were questioning this whole experience about, does the devil or do demons exist this way, or is it simply psychological issues? You know, a modern question, you could say, of a contemporary world to religion.
I guess you begin to question it when you start to research the character and the part, and I think when you're in it so much, you're filming all day. You get home, you do your work for the next day, and you're constantly in it, and so I think that you can't help but begin to question, you know, and sort of have the same questions as your character, because well, you have to be able to explore that yourself to be able to portray what they're talking about. And you know, reading I read quite a lot of a few theology books about exorcisms, about demons, about possession and stuff like that, and I went to some exorcisms with Matt Baglio then in Rome, and I think when you experience all that, and you can't help but try and formulate in your own mind what it is that you think about it, you know, and you have to bring that then to the character. So I think you do question it, no doubt.
What were the
For you too?
Yeah, definitely. For me, it was an interesting, different journey, because as Matt is a journalist, and the book started in his research, it was interesting to go through that journey that is a bit different from Colin's character, because he's a priest. And I'm trying to figure out if it's real or not. And towards the end of the film, we understand why I'm questioning. But it's an interesting, for me, it was very interesting as an actress to get the chance to read the book and use that as a base for my character, because that's what Matt, in a way, went through. But I tried also to focus a lot on the script and a lot of Colin's work and what was going on, and what Michael, the director, wanted, just to pull that in an interesting way, and me, Elise, trying to understand, not just trying to do the book. So it was an interesting match.
Right.
Anyway, so can you describe those exercises, and then also, you know, how did you prepare emotionally for your scenes where you had to perform it?
The exercises I saw they were in quite a well-known church in Rome.
Called?
I'm not going to say it's the Capuchin Church in Rome, but there's quite a few churches in Rome that perform there are exorcisms. There's one really famous church, and you would be very surprised that I remember somebody brought me in, and we walked around, and there's tons and tons of tourists coming up the steps and stuff, and we walked in and we saw this little room, and the door was ajar, and there's just a bench along the side, and I think it was Matt was with me, and he said if you come here as a tourist now and you see people sitting on these benches, he said they're all waiting to go in to get exercised that day. But I saw 5 blessings, as they call them, and there's nothing terribly. I think I had more of a preconception, which I think everyone does, going into it, and so I was kind of a little freaked out when I knew. Like, I grew up Catholic, Irish Catholic, and so I was kind of like, oh, do I really want to go in and expose myself to the demons,
And it's hard because until then you don't know if it's real or not.
Yeah,
you don't know what you're
yeah.
going to see, if people are going to be turning around. And
Yeah, the only thing that really sticks out in my mind was one girl, and she actually closed the door on us. She didn't want us to watch, but as another blessing was going on, she walked past us to go into the toilet was beside the room where the exorcisms were on. She walked past, and as she walked past, as soon as she entered the door, her head just turned really quickly and just stared. And she literally just stared at me until she closed the door in the bathroom. And she didn't blink. And then as she came out, she did the exact same. And then she went into get it exercised, and she closed the door, and she was the only girl I heard thrashing and sort of screaming, and crying and stuff like that. Nothing, not in a major, but she was. And then she walked off. That was it. It's funny. What's most interesting about it is that it's like a waiting room. It's nearly like going to a dentist or a doctor's or to a therapist. There's the waiting room, and then you get called in, and the priest he puts his hand on the shoulder, or he can put his stole on very gently prays, and people have their eyes closed. And apparently, one of the minor manifestations is in some of the lesser classes, they kind of burp or yawn sort of thing, and that's sort of a manifestation. But what was interesting was just the way, thanks very much, Father, and bye-bye, and next. And what he would do is he would tell us, just before he called somebody else, and he'd say, this woman has a demon behind her eyes. It's sort of, and when you heard the screaming, that was us putting stuff on her eyes or her face or wherever, and just praying over her. And he said, that's it, next. He just walked in and went in again. So in no way was he trying to convince me that it was real, because why should he have to? Do you know what I mean? In his mind, and it was the same with a few of the exorcists I've met. It's, I don't have to convince you because I know it's real. So they don't try to convince you it's real or not. It's up to you. Take it or leave it. But
Go ahead.
yeah, so that was it really.
I was going to say, speaking of preconceptions, did you have any preconceptions of working with Oscar winner Anthony Hopkins? I mean, were you perhaps more afraid of that than dealing with the supernatural stuff?
Yeah, equally scared probably. No, I was lucky that I'd read with Tony before I actually got the part, and he instantly put me at ease the day we did the reading together, and he just has a way of making you feel incredibly comfortable, which is great, because then you can really play together, and I think it's scary because obviously who he is, and Hannibal Lecter, and and Oscar, but not only that, like Shadowlands and all these unbelievable films that are Remains of the Day. You go, these are incredible performances, so you can't help but be nervous, but it's inspirational more than terrifying, I guess, to think that you're going to get a chance to be able to play with somebody like that,
How about you, Elisa? You had made like a funny face when I asked the questions.
No,
interesting...
it's just because I think we were talking about it. I completely agree with what Colin is saying, and Anthony is such a wonderful, kind man and actor. He allows you to do so much. He wants you to bring things for the scene, which is very hard because you're bringing something for Tony, and it's very overwhelming. But I think it's a great opportunity